Ethereum and Web3. Max and I did this as a collaborative presentation. Okay, so this is my who am I. I am majoring in CSEC, minoring in CS and communication. I'm on the CCDC Linux team, a bunch of other things. Don't need to go in depth, but
Yeah, so most of you probably know who I am. Max, BSMS CSEC, math minor, maybe. I actually don't know. Do a bunch of stuff, looking to get some of it off the plate, hopefully in the coming weeks. Actually, as of like the other day, I'm technically an intern at Cloudflare after Area 1 Security got bought out, so thank you. But yeah, all those companies going to IBM XFR for pen testing next semester, or this summer. And be free to ask me about any of it or any of this anytime. Okay, so first we're looking to create like a baseline. A lot of people have heard a lot of things. They really don't make sense. It's like something unfortunate of this space is that we just hear a bunch of stuff. It all sounds kind of like bullcrap, and no one really knows what to believe. So we're starting off with the base. What is a cryptocurrency? So what makes up this cryptocurrency? Basically, it's just an online currency. I always like whenever an old person asks me, what is this? It's like, okay, imagine that you could just like trade stocks, or it's just trading stocks, but there's no company behind it. You have something to say, you ultimately own this, but it's not physical. Generally, that's at the lowest level what you could say. And this also incorporates stuff like decentralized finance, where there's even brokerage firms that are starting to deal with cryptocurrencies, such and so forth. There's crypto loans are even a thing. There's like a bunch of things coming out, and it's basically just putting crypto in front of something that already exists and just making it different somehow. So, so generally with cryptocurrencies, biggest thing is that they're built on blockchain, and those blockchains are enabled with ledgers. So you never really have a cryptocurrency. You have a wallet address that has cryptocurrency associated to it. Every time you make a transaction, it's completely immutable. There's no such thing as going back on it. There is infamously or famously, whatever you want to say it, one transaction that was reverted, and that's if you've ever seen Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Ethereum Classic is the one that didn't revert after like hackers stole like half the entire like Ethereum network. And then normal Ethereum is the new Ethereum, which is the one who did revert after that. Generally, this is all enabled with the use of nodes, which are actually the ones doing all the transactions, figuring out, being the centralized, just think of almost like servers. They are the servers that handle transactions, handle the miners connected to them, which are the ones, miners are proving transactions, which again, we'll get into later. And then another thing a lot of people don't understand, coins and tokens, technically different, but in theory, very similar. So coins, they have an entire network associated to them. So Ethereum is a coin, or Bitcoin is a coin, because they have the Ethereum or Bitcoin network. Stuff like, whatchamacallit, Dogecoin, all those like really weird variants, those are all tokens. They're built on those existing networks as smaller as tokens, and they just exist at a contract address because they're nothing more than a smart contract, which again, we'll get into later. So why the hell is this important? There's a lot of money in it, that period. I think we can say that. As of last night, I think it's even gone up from there, like noticeably up. As of last night, it was $1.7 trillion in terms of a market cap for all cryptocurrencies. And Bitcoin alone, I think somewhere around 900 billion. So you're literally looking at only 5 companies in the world that are worth more than Bitcoin. And 4 companies in the world that are worth more than all the cryptocurrencies combined. Like, it's an insane amount of money, and there's still a lot more money to be made. And then, just for the average person not necessarily looking to make a buck, It's really one of the cheapest, fastest, and most reliable ways to transact currencies. Everyone kind of, it's a pain in the ass when you're on the weekends, like, I have to send my whatever, $100, but it's gonna be $20 in fees because it's on the weekend. Maybe they're in a different country, that's more fees. It's gonna take 2 days to transact a wire transfer. Cryptocurrency and those just do not care. There's no such thing as a fee for a world away. It all exists as the same. So there's no specialized fees. There's only the fee to transact, which is the same for sending it from your one wallet to the next that you both own, or one wallet to like China. And another nice thing, no governing bodies. Everyone likes to, there's like a recent stat that like some stupid percent of US currency was like minted in the last decade. That's, unless you have a cryptocurrency that's specifically trying to create inflation, it's not gonna happen. It's extremely limited, and the inventors of that currency have already maintained that rate. And it's impossible to change unless you change the entire crypto. And honestly, some of the technology is just really cool. There's a lot of things I'd be like, what the hell is this? And you're like, I kind of agree with that. But ultimately, this is all very new technology, and a lot of it's very cool. Okay. So another big topic in this space is your wallet. A lot of people think like, oh, what is it? On Silicon Valley, there was like that old thing where, what was it? I forget what his name was, but he lost his hardware key that had all his crypto on that was worth like some stupid amount of money, and he threw it away in his jeans, and everyone sees him like looking for it, like going through every gene that's like ever been thrown out. The biggest thing, that it's not actually stored on there. All that's stored on there is, you could say, the password to get into the wallet online. Nothing is actually stored on the wallet. It's simply an address that preserves where something is. It's like you and your friends constantly like going back and forth and saying, hey, I owe you $10 for next dinner. And they pay, and they're like, oh, I owe you $2. And then just back and forth. And you know that total to who you owe is some amount of money, but it doesn't really exist. You just know it's this person, this address, this whatever. Yeah. Yeah. And then going with that address, it's based on public-private key. So you can actually see exactly what's in every person's wallet. Again, based on the crypto. I think most have it, but you can literally check sometimes if you're bored. You look at like recent like blocks, and you can click on someone's wallet, and you're like, oh, this guy has $1 billion in. Or like, I don't think I've ever seen $1 billion, but I've seen north of tens of millions a lot of times. And it's honestly pretty cool some of the times. And yeah, no, it's good. So another important thing is how wallet IDs are actually generated. Everyone's gone through like, what is it, like CSEC 140 now, or 101 it used to be. Everything's based on public-private key exchange. It's gonna depend based on what exact crypto you're using, how the wallets are generated. I think Ethereum's Ketchak something, and Bitcoin's elliptical curve, DSA. Yeah. But generally, whenever you make a wallet, you're gonna get a mnemonic seed phrase that's like 12 words in a row, and you're like, I'm never gonna remember that. You save that, and what it can do is just keep generating new private keys. But if you ever like lose anything, you can regenerate them all straight from that. So you can have several wallets contained within a mnemonic seed. And then each public key has a specific public key that associates to it, and a wallet ID associated to that public key. So just like going down, you like iterate down, and wallet ID is unique, and everything above it is unique. Yeah, mnemonic seed phrase can regenerate multiple wallets, assuming that they're all made with the same seed phrase, and as well as private keys, but it only generates a single wallet. And finally, public key and wallet ID really do nothing other than say this is an address. There's nothing associated to make transactions. You can only view it. Yeah, any modification with a given wallet has to be signed by a private key, or else it just straight up won't go through. That's one of the base essentials for it.
Okay, now we're gonna go over to Ethereum. Very fun. So, as you guys are aware, some of you might not be. Ethereum is currently the second largest cryptocurrency by market cap. First is obviously Bitcoin because Bitcoin came first, but it is one of the most supported and versatile cryptocurrencies. It is most commonly used for NFTs, which we'll get into later. It revolutionized the cryptocurrency space by making it far more useful and usable system for smart contracts, and it has a proof of work system and has the process of running on proof of authority, which we will get into in a second. So there are a couple advantages. We couldn't list 1,000 of them, so we chose the most important 3. First, their support. There's been like tons of development into making Ethereum usable and easily accessible for everything. So you could just open up your browser, install a crypto wallet, and you could easily buy Ethereum right now if you really wanted to. There's several modules in many languages that support Ethereum development. Most commonly, I think Rust and Go are more commonly used for Ethereum platforms. Well, if you want to mint stuff with that, we'll get into that later. Volatility, it was once viewed as negative, but investors have recognized the predictable market cycle patterns, and they can profit from the parabolic profits that are generated by the bubbles in the market. Meaning, I know a bunch of large banking firms like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, they have their own crypto trading teams, and they do some crazy predictions. If you want to go do your own research on Ethereum, look at Goldman Sachs, 100%. Liquidity, due to some of the worldwide creation of trading platforms such as Coinbase, Binance, KuCoin, and many more, Ethereum is considered one of the most liquid financial assets. Continuing on. Okay, so proof of work versus proof of authority. So proof of work is basically this. We have blocks, mixed hashes, and nonces. That's how the Ethereum transactions are processed into the blocks. These examples contain what is exactly inside of that block. I had a diagram, but it was too big to fit in the PowerPoint, so. There is proof of authority as well, a consensus method in which a number of blockchains, blockchain actors within this ecosystem are given the power to validate transactions, and they decide whether new blocks will be added to the blockchain or not, basically how fast your transactions processed, and if your transactions processed at all. Sometimes transactions fail, and if you don't pay the Ethereum gas fee, or if you don't have the proper settings set, your transaction will fail and that money will most likely be lost. So, validators are based off of staked Ethereum, which you are staking when you're making that transaction. So, what is a smart contract? So they are simple programs stored on the blockchain that run when predetermined conditions are met. They typically are used to automate the execution of an agreement so that all the participants can immediately be certain of the outcome without any intermediaries' involvement or time loss. So if we're using smart contracts, we don't need to wait the 3 to 5 days or however long RIT takes for our refunds, because that's going through a contractor that has to go through, verify the money, and then allocate it to you, and then send it to your bank account. That's a very lengthy process. Smart contracts takes less than 15 seconds. Very beautiful. So continuing on, speed, efficiency, and accuracy. Once a specific condition is met, the contract is executed immediately. So that means if my money is being sent to Max, and I agreed to pay the gas fee, the transaction's then posted to the blockchain and it is processed. Because the smart contracts are digital and automated, I don't have to sign any legal paperwork or a wire transaction saying, hey, I want to send money to Max. I can just do that. There's a lot of trust and transparency because there's no third party involved. I don't have the bank, I don't have any government agency doing anything when I'm sending Ethereum over the blockchain. And because there's encrypted records of transactions, they are available. I believe they are available. Specifically for Ethereum, you can track the key of somebody's public key, and you can see all the transactions that are going in and out. Lastly, security. Blockchain transaction records are encrypted, which makes it very hard to hack. Because each record is connected to the previous and subsequent records on a ledger, which is a wallet, which we will see in a second, hackers wouldn't have to alter the entire chain to change a single record. I think if some of you guys here took CSEC 201, you're going to have that blockchain lab that goes really in depth with what we're doing on smart contracts. Okay, Web 3.0. Let's go.
Yeah, so Web 3 or Web 3.0, there's like some disparity. Like some people will not call it Web 3 and some people will not call it Web 3.0. I think the more official term is technically 3.0, but is what it is. This is basically the culmination of all these things and making it actually useful. We've talked about the theory of what exactly a cryptocurrency is, what exactly what exactly a lot of these terms mean. Like I don't know. Personally, I was confused with it all when I first heard it. We're just hoping to make this a little bit more simplistic, straightforward, such and so forth. So Web 3.0, enter the metaverse, whatever you want to call it. Here we go. So why the hell is it called Web 3.0? So there's this idea of like tiers of web. So originally it was like all web was just a Wikipedia page or a wiki page, or it was just flat HTML. You could read it, or it might not even be HTML. It was basically a page you could go to, you could read stuff on it. That's about it. It was client connections being served by a web server. All it did was send it, no interaction beyond that. Then we move into Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is when the interaction between client and server finally got to the point where we're at kind of now, where we can log into our bank account and do stuff online. There's some source of trust authentication that we can derive online, and it's not just reading off just a Wikipedia page or wiki page, whatever it is. There's actual customization on a per user basis. And finally, we get to Web 3.0. It's this idea of integrating all these terms, the Ethereum, blockchain, ledger, all those buzzwords that investors love to throw at you for whatever reason. It's kind of all integrating that into it, because Web 3.0 is just is able to enable pretty much on a per user basis complete customization, as well as another big thing is actually, to start off, Web 1.0, it allowed you access to pages. Web 2.0, it allowed authentication into web servers. And then the big idea with Web 3.0, which I kind of skipped back for, allows you to own parts of the internet. And that's like, you see all the like little like ads on TikTok or whatever they are, say like own this NFT. It's kind of like that, kind of not, pretty much like that, I'll be honest. But it is the ability to own your data, own everything behind it.
So, what is ownership? So, traditional blockchains associated with cryptocurrencies as ledgers. For example, the most common is MetaMask, but you can also use Coinbase Wallet and several others for different platforms, obviously. They prove the ownership of digital assets, such as the amount of Ethereum that is stored at a certain address, And if somebody here wanted to access the funds, they couldn't unless they held the owner of the address hostage and made them do it. Only the legitimate owners of the address are able to transfer funds because they are the only ones who know the 12-word private key or seed phrase, which also serves as the private key. Here we have an example of MetaMask. This is a user exporting their private key. Yeah.
Okay. So what exactly is this, like, in a more just term, what is Web 3.0? It's kind of that, or Web 3.0 makes a proliferation of cooperative governance structures for one centralized product possible. That's a lot of words, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. So Web 3.0 is just that idea of being able to not only have, well, like I said, one central governance for products. It is moving away from a single web server. It is moving away from the true authority, or a true authority being through a CA. There is more in terms of customizability with Web 3.0 than anything before, and it allows for stuff like tokenization, where instead of you having to use, say, the main coin on a network, you can deploy a smart contract and make your own. You can put your own code on the blockchain through a smart contract and say, I want to execute this X, Y, and Z. And it might be not as functional as a Python script because there are certain limits to it, but there's a ton that you can do. Moving forward with that, your wallet is one of the key essentials for Web3. This allows you for authentication. You no longer need like a username password because now you have a private key, public key that works absolutely everywhere. People don't need to store your name because, well, they know it's this wallet ID associated with this account. It allows for much more simplistic authentication, ownership, because you can say this address now owns this, and there's nothing, there's not even really a need for cookies anymore because you can now associate with that stuff with wallet IDs. So moving forward, we talked about that idea of like NFTs. That's the opposite of a token. So we talked about tokens. They are just like the currency, but like the smaller one, not really smaller though, just they run on a coin network. So non-fungible tokens means that they're not all the same. So the full name of a token's technically fungible because like one's one, two is just 1 + 1. But when you're talking about NFTs, they're all unique, and the actual price of one is to be decided on a basis of just that one. And again, there's a whole lot of disagreements and misinformation in there. I just ask you to like actually like seriously look at it because some of this stuff is cool.
Some of the advantages of the crypto stuff. So it's easy, secure, simple authentication that is wallet based. You can go several routes with this. You can have a browser-based wallet. You can have a physical wallet, as Max mentioned. There was an example with the guy looking for his physical wallet, but at the end of the day, you could use that on your browser if you really wanted to. Still fairly niche. A lot of development needs to be done, and tons of money to be made. Look into it, guys. It's super customizable. Your wallet can almost act as a configuration file sometimes. And everything is new. You should go and have some fun with it.
So kind of ending up with all this, there will be a second part of this talk where we're going to get a little bit more in depth with like NFTs and just smart contracts in general, because that's honestly one of the most interesting parts of it, is having your like own code just on the network just to be executed whenever. But a small part of that is DApps, or decentralized applications. These are basically utilizing smart contracts in order to run their code. So there's like that idea of everything on Web3 is just, the back end is Ethereum, or backend is whatever you're running it on. Who needs a SQL server to keep all like your information when you can have a smart contract that says, hey, this user is this? And of course, there's that idea of why we would do that, and it's ultimately just simplicity as well as complete security. Everything on there is completely not changeable, although it would be public. So there's not really need for passwords, which is one of the main things people want to keep private, because now we have public key authentication just built into absolutely everything. But yeah, these DApps are able to do just peer-to-peer networks, just absolutely everything. It's like the main idea of the metaverse is like absolutely everything can be just like, you can just switch over to anything at any time, and they're all decentralized, but existing on the same platform. So this is that idea of just kind of, it is a very tough topic to explain in terms of what we've talked about, but it's basically the idea of just segmenting smart contracts and being able to actually use them. Did you want to speak more on that?
No, we're good, I think.
You're more into it.
So there is certain things that are pretty popular right now. Mostly, I'd say Ubisoft has a platform. It's not as well known as Meta's Metaverse. As Max said, you can do almost anything in the Metaverse. You can buy your own land. You can build a house. You can do whatever you want. That is solely based off the blockchain.
Actually, just thinking about it, there's actually some really cool stuff in terms of like crypto casinos, where like your entire like the casino, it's kind of cool because the actual smart contracts that you're going to be gambling with are completely public source code, because like I said, everything on Ethereum, the blockchain, whatever you want to call, you can see all of it. So you can just like reverse the code, which is like very simple, and say, hey, exactly how is this working, and then you can. Every single different gambling, whatever, is its own DApp and similar stuff like that. Crypto casinos are a huge thing right now, honestly, and might not be the most legal thing. There's still a lot of debate on that, but they exist. And that's as much I'll say about it.
So if everything is public, what are the privacy implications of this? Why would I put my data on such a public system?
So when we say everything's public, it is. It is very hard to. One of the big things with crypto is that there's no association unless you make it between a wallet ID and your name. A lot of people who've stolen cryptocurrencies can never take it out because that requires you going through some exchange where you're taking a wallet ID and putting it to a name. So on a network itself, there is no association between that. There is only a wallet ID, and that wallet ID owns stuff. And if you just happen to have the public key or the private, or if you just happen to have the private key for it, you then own it. In terms of that, yes, there are concerns with it. Like if you make it purposely vulnerable, or yeah, there are points where it's purposely vulnerable, and there are concerns with privacy. But as long as you're security conscious with it, there's still a lot of development you can do securely. Did you want to say more about that?
Yeah, so as somebody that has experience in the realm, I do not like putting my name out there, mostly for privacy reasons, because we are obviously in security. So when you make a wallet, there is no association with you, your identity, or anything. It is solely on the blockchain. That address, if you choose for it to be known that it is associated with your name, it will be. Otherwise, it won't be, and you don't have to worry about anything being public, because it's just, at the end of the day, you're just transferring money and you don't have an identity. You're just an address. There are millions, probably trillions of transactions that go through a day.
What about like you're talking about DApps? Like what about a DApp? You know,
traditional Web 2.0 account where you have a username, email, password, stuff like that. Like, will that then be associated, or is that, are you authenticating to Web 3.0 and dApps through your wallet?
So the question was about authentication through dApps and whether you could be connected to dApps based on your wallet ID, and the answer is yes. Theoretically, everything, or you could see every single user that dApp has done a transaction with, but you won't see every single dApp that you just authenticated with. So authentication is completely not with the blockchain. It's just saying, okay, this person has a private, or is able to sign a transaction with their private key that matches this public key. We don't have to put anything on the blockchain itself saying that you exist there. You can log in and that's a thing. But if you're ever to make a transaction with a smart contract, another user, that transaction is known.
I have a question on Twitch.
Oh. During your research, did you do look?
So yes, we did look into DAOs. That is actually going to be in our next presentation. So the question is, during your research, did you look into DAOs? Yeah, so it will actually be one part of our next presentation. Stay tuned. Yeah, thank you.
Were there any other questions? Okay, so that's another important note to be made that I didn't. Theoretically, Ethereum is just a single network that is just public. If you ever look, it's Ethereum itself is based on chain IDs. So I think Ethereum Classic is chain ID either 0 or 1, and then the Ethereum we know today is 1 or 2 based on where they started it. I don't exactly remember, but then there's the idea of private blockchains where you can then have your company spin up its own Ethereum network and then run with that. So the entire network code is completely open source, so you can have another network where, say you own 1 trillion Ethereum, and it's not gonna mean anything because it's on a different network. So it allows complete segmentation from another network, but allows all the usability of the Ethereum network in a completely private sense. So that would quell some security concerns like a previous question had, where your nodes are completely, well, they're not public. And then there's also the idea of test networks. So Ropstein, I think is one of the biggest ones. There's a bunch others. If you ever go on MetaMask, you can unlock your test networks. And then there's literally just like online websites. It'd be like, okay, send me 1 Ethereum a day. And then it will just do that. And because that Ethereum means nothing, and then you can test out your smart contracts, your transactions, your apps, or whatever on those test nets, and it's not real Ethereum. It's just exists out there, and it's done. Does that answer your question? Awesome.
All right, I think we're good.
Cool. If that's all, thank you guys for having us.